This video is going to briefly explain cell membrane structure and function. So in this picture here, we can see that the cell membrane is made up of a lot of different things. For example, we have right here and here and here and here, all of this gray and white. Those are going to be phospholipids. And phospholipids are the primary component of a cell membrane. We can see here and here and here and here and here in purple, these are proteins. And we can see the yellow here, here, and here, and here. Those are cholesterol molecules. The green are various types of carbohydrates. And if they're attached to a protein, as we see here or here, we call it a glycoprotein. We can also have various carbohydrates attached to lipids, phospholipids, and this would be a glycolipid. So cell membranes are made of many different things, and we refer to that as a mosaic. Just like in art, where you might create a mosaic work of art, which is made out of a number of different things, the cell membrane is made out of a number of different things, so we call it a mosaic. The word fluid means to move easily, to flow. And what we have here is, in a cell membrane, none of this is stuck in one position. It is very dynamic or moving or fluid. And so when we think of a cell membrane, we should think of it as a fluid, meaning to move. All the parts can kind of move around. And a mosaic, meaning it's made out of a number of different parts. And so we can think of the cell membrane, we refer to it as a model called the fluid mosaic model. So this is a typical representation of part of a cell membrane. Now, when we look at proteins, there are two different types of proteins. We have a integral protein, which we can see extends to the outside and to the inside of a cell membrane. So the outside of the cell and to the inside of the cell. But we also have these things called peripheral proteins, which are only on one side. So this little one right here is called a peripheral protein. It's on the periphery or the edge of the cell membrane. And this is the integral protein, and it is all the way through the cell membrane. So those are a couple different types of proteins, and we'll refer to them later. Here's the primary component of a cell membrane, and it's called the phospholipid bilayer. And we call it a phospholipid bilayer because, one, there are many phospholipids. That's this white circle with a couple tails hanging off of it. Look like little legs. This is a phospholipid, and we call it a bilayer because there's two layers. We have one up here, and we have one down here. And the tails, or little legs, are always connected to each other, kind of pointing toward each other, and the heads are always away from each other. And when we think of the phospholipid, the head part is considered hydrophilic. And the hydrophilic head means to love water. It attracts to water. So this side is always going to like to be near water. And the little legs or tails are hydrophobic, and that means they fear water. And so they like to be away from water. So the phospholipid has two sides to it. It's got a side that likes water and a side that does not like water. So here's another picture of a phospholipid, which is a little more detailed. We can see the head, we can see the tail, hydrophilic head, hydrophobic tail. And this is just a little bit about what they're made of. So we have a phosphate group up in this head region. Then we have these nonpolar tails, which are just a bunch of carbons and hydrogens. And this is kind of more of the lipid part. So we have a phospholipid. Just another picture of what a phospholipid would look like. It has the hydrophilic heads and hydrophobic tails shown. Their heads are toward this watery part of the outside of a cell, and the heads here are pointing toward the inside of the part of the cell, and the tails are between them, pointing away from both sides of the water. And we have our bilayer. So you have one layer and another layer. Okay, now what we would like to do is to draw a phospholipid bilayer. So in your notebooks, draw a phospholipid bilayer and label the hydrophilic area, which would be the heads, and the hydrophobic area, which would be the tails. Now, if you want to use the drawing here, you could do that. Pause the video, and that might be easier for you to do that. You don't have to draw all of these heads, but a good example of one side and another side would be good to give you an idea about what a phospholipid bilayer would look like. Once you're finished with that, we should add some proteins. Now remember, an integral protein, right here, an integral protein is some protein that goes all the way through the cell membrane. And we can see in this one, it's got like a little channel through here. And this is going to be part of what helps certain molecules move from one side of the membrane to the other side of the membrane. And a peripheral protein is on one side of the membrane. You got integral protein and you got peripheral protein. And they're kind of all part of that phospholipid bilayer. So first, you should be able to explain the difference between an integral protein and a peripheral protein. Make sure you know the difference between the two. And then to your phospholipid bilayer, add an integral protein and add 2 peripheral proteins. Add 1 integral protein and 2 peripheral proteins, and make sure you label them in your drawing. Again, this is what a typical lipid bilayer with added proteins would look like. Make sure we have a pretty good understanding of what the cell membrane looks like so that we can continue with our explanation of the cell membrane in the next video.